Hi, we're Group 5. I'm Lori, and my teammates include Annie, Eric, and Arundhati. We chose to do our analysis on population. After going over the background with you, I will turn it over to the team to go over the executive summary, findings, and additional analysis. First, the introduction. We analyzed population indicators from the World Bank after creating our database. We normalized it using an ER diagram. Analysis was conducted on 9 mandatory questions and 2 additional questions the team chose, identifying population statistics and measurements. The mandatory analysis identified countries with complete population data and countries without population data. In addition, the analysis highlighted indicators with inconsistent data and rated countries according to their data. World Bank indicator files that we used are population total, urban population growth, and net migration. We also chose GDP and air transport passengers carried for our additional analysis questions. The ER diagram illustrated shows how our tables are connected. Circles signify no relationship, lines denote one relationship, and crow's feet denote numerous relationships. This ER diagram also displays the minimum and maximum cardinalities located on the line. Now I'll pass it over to my teammate so she can walk you through the executive summary.
Thank you, Laurie. Hello everyone, my name is Arundhati and today we will be covering the executive summary in this slide. We will delve into the analysis of global population trend using the key indicators from the World Bank. When talking about the data accessibility and data availability, more countries was having the data availability for the total and urban population growth indicator, while net migration indicator, the data was really limited. Certain nations like Cayman Islands, American Samoa was lacking the demographic information, which was very crucial for understanding the population dynamics. But on the other hand, countries like Afghanistan, Algeria was having more demographic information available. Based on the analysis that we have performed, United States and Germany are on the top list for the net migration rates. We have also observed that North America and Europe as major migration hub, while the migration occurs in the Oceania and Australia at a very lower degree. By analyzing the available data, we have found some interesting trends. As of 2011, total population, urban population, annual growth in urban population are the indicators for which countries have most of the data. When focusing on the United States, we have witnessed consistent growth in the overall population and urbanization. Net migration was peaked in 1997 and then it got stabilized. Now let me conclude this slide by talking about the economic impact. Understanding the migration is not just about population, but it can impact the economies too. For instance, air travel was surged in 1970s and economic growth was tracked with GDP and consumer spending. Understanding these population dynamics and the economic impact can significantly shape the policies and strategies for the future development. So that's about the summary of the project. Now let me pass it over to Annie to cover the first part of the analysis of the database.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Annie. I will be covering the mandatory analysis for M1 to M6 and all our findings for these analysis. For our M1, we first looked into all the countries that do not have any data for one or more of our 4 indicators. Our indicators being the population total, the urban population growth, and the net migration. So here on our presentation, you can see that we list out 10 of these countries that do not have data for all 4 indicators. And this is the code that we ran to get our results. So for M2, we looked into countries that have data for all 4 indicators. So these are on the graph right here. You can see we have countries with all 4 indicators in population total, urban population growth, and net migration. And this is the data, this is the code that we ran to get our data. For M3, we looked into the number of countries with data for each of our 4 indicators. So as you can see here, the number of countries for net immigration is 193. We have 211 countries with data for urban population and urban population growth, and we have 213 countries with total population data. And this is the code that we ran for the indicator and number of countries. So for M4, we looked into net immigration and we looked into the year 2017, which is our most recent data. In 2017, the US has the highest net migration, followed by Germany. The other countries, Turkey, UK, Canada, Colombia, Russian Federation, Uganda, Australia, and Italy are also in the top 10 in terms of net migration, but they have fewer than 1.5 million. And this is the data that we ran to get our results. In M5, we looked into net migration of each continent. In the chart, you can see that Europe and North America have more people migrating to their continents than any other continent. And for the other continents, Australia and Oceania also have migration, but they're far less in comparison. People are also leaving countries such as Africa, South America, and Asia. And this is the code that we ran to get our results. In M6, we looked into a trend of our 4 indicators. As you can see here, the total population and urbanization have grown year over year. We also looked into net migration and urban growth, which, as you can see here, net migration increased and peaked in 1997 before falling back down to earlier levels. On the other hand, urban net growth is more volatile. It shows a declining trend between 1950 and 1988, but it jumped back up in 1992 before declining again. And I'll pass it on to Eric for M7 and the additional analysis.
Yes, thank you, Annie. Hello, everyone. My name is Eric, and I will be discussing the remaining analysis. So M7 asks, what are the top 10 countries with the highest average total population growth? The country with the highest average growth for 2010 and beyond was Eritrea at 10.32%, nearly twice as much as Qatar, the next closest nation. So now we'll look at the query and the results. So in the SQL query, we were able to compute the average growth rates of the country's populations from the population data table and present the top 10 countries with the highest average growth rates. Next slide. So next is MA. MA asks to find the countries which have 2011 data for any of our N indicators. So we were able to obtain 2011 statistics on the total and urban population yearly growth, and net migration for Afghanistan, Albania, and the remaining countries, as you can see. Next is the query and the results. So for this SQL query, we were able to retrieve the names of the countries that have specific population data indicators available for the 2011 date, and for from the population data table, and present distinct country names. Next slide. So the next is M9. M9 asks to find countries which contain data for all of our N indicators in 2011. Well, because net migration is only recorded every 5 years and was not recorded in 2011, there are no countries with data for all 4 indicators from 2011. This indicates that as of 2011, the 3 variables for which countries have the most data are total population, urban population, and annual growth in urban population. Next slide. The SQL query retrieves the names of the countries from the country table that have specific population data indicators available for 2011 from our population data table. Next slide. So next, I'll be talking about our additional analysis questions. So our first additional analysis question, A1, asks, show air transport indicator in a table of values for the US with the indicator code and values as column names and the date as rows. So we were able to determine air travel has grown dramatically during the 1970s and 2000s since the United States began tracking it in 1970 and it continued to rise in 2010, a bit more slowly. So then next slide. So in this SQL query, we're able to retrieve the data related to air passenger statistics for the United States from the population data table. It summarizes the total value of air passenger indicator for each day, presenting it as air passengers. The query groups results by day, orders them in ascending order by day, and displays the day along with the corresponding total air passenger figures. Next slide. So this is our last additional question. So A2 question is, show GDP indicator in the table of values for the US with the indicator code and values as column names and the date as row. So similar to other countries, the United States began tracking its GDP in 1960 and has continued to grow ever since. Consumer spending usually increases along with GDP growth, though sometimes in tandem with other variables like price declines. So our query results. So this SQL query retrieves related to the gross domestic product for the United States from the population data table. It computes the total value of GDP for each distinct day. The query groups the results by date, orders them in ascending order by date, and displays the date along with the corresponding total GDP figures. Thank you.